All right, welcome back everyone to another episode of the Opposite of Cheating podcast. I am joined by a fellow University of California person today, Shane Shukis, up at Riverside. So really thrilled to be speaking with one of my sister colleagues. Welcome, Shane.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So Shane, tell everybody a little bit more about you, what you do, and in what context.
Well, I am a continuing lecturer in the University Writing Program at UC Riverside, and our focus is on those first year writing courses, the general education breadth courses that all the students have to take often against their will. But we feel that we're sort of like ground zero of inculcating some of the most necessary critical thinking skills needed
Yeah.
for success.
And probably one of the first jobs people think of as hit the hardest, maybe when ChatGPT was released back in November 2022. But even though you're in a University of California school, you're generally speaking, our writing, those kinds of writing classes are pretty manageable sizes, correct? They're not like the 600 person math course.
No, they're seminar style
Yeah.
because direct student engagement on a one-to-one level is necessary for their success.
Yeah. So what, 25, 30 students? What are we
It
up to?
depends on the course, but you're
Okay.
looking at that's about the range, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I know ours are increasing a little bit
hmm
this year because of budget issues. So, wow. So, teaching writing. Yeah. So, before we get into the nuances of that in the age of AI, I have to ask you what we ask everybody, which is what is your first memory of encountering this idea of academic integrity? It could be as a student, could be as a professor.
Well, outside of my experiences as an undergraduate, because I didn't have many with that, but I remember when I was a graduate student and TAing for my first class,
Ah,
and myself and another TA it was one of those 500 person lecture
okay.
halls, and we were sitting around grading essays, and he and I were talking about this weird essay we got that was just all over the map. And I mentioned some of the things this student was saying, and then he looked at me and goes, "I've got an essay that's saying the exact same thing." So we actually compared the essays. Clearly, they had copied off each other.
Oh, good old fashioned cheating.
Yes, they were roommates. Well, here's this is worth telling the whole story because it really sets the tone of this. So we turned it in to the chief TA,
Yep.
and they arranged that at the final exam, these two students were brought to a back room, not knowing what was going on. Long story short, one of them admitted to copying their roommate's essay without the roommate knowing whether or not it's really happened,
Yeah.
and they were just told that they were probably going to be thrown out of the university. And this guy looked at me, and he actually said, "What am I supposed to do? I'm graduating, and I've been accepted to Texas A&M University. I'm from Texas originally. Texas A&M University for a master's degree. What am I going to do?" And that just hit me so hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I remembered it nearly 30 years later.
Will you say the name of the university? It was would kick a student out for one violation?
No, and that's not what happened. I don't know what happened, but they were just
Okay.
said they were going to be referred and they could be kicked out.
Could be. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
30 years ago, the system in the United States was a lot more punitive, assuming this was in the United States. We have definitely progressed beyond that. When I started in academic integrity in 2002, um, the common vernacular was three P's, prevention,
hmm
policing, and punishment. And so I think we've come a long way since then, and we've
hmm
recognized better that we are educational institutions and we should help students learn from their mistakes.
hmm
Uh, and then if a student demonstrates through their actions they refuse to learn or can't learn from their mistakes, then we might end up having to get them out. Or if we find out they are, as we talk about in our book, enrolled persons, where they're just hiring contract
Yeah.
cheaters to do all their work for them, then obviously they don't get to stay. So, okay, so you're teaching writing. How long have you been teaching writing?
Um, since 1996.
Okay, so you've been through it all. You've been through
hmm
the internet, you've been through the launch of Turnitin, you've been through
hmm
Wikipedia and ChatGPT and all of it. Okay. So, I met you at ASU and GSV because you were on a panel with Austin, whose episode this season is episode one and has already aired. And you told this awesome story that I want you to retell, which is one way in that you've integrated Gen AI into your courses. And I want you to tell that story and then use that as kind of a launching pad to tell us more about why you're incorporating Gen AI into your writing courses when a lot of professors are refusing to.
Sure. As a brief preface,
Yeah.
I should say that back in October 2022, when the first breathless news headlines came out about
Yeah.
ChatGPT and words like singularity and
Bells.
the death of education of writing courses came out.
Oh,
Quite frankly, I feared for my job.
yeah.
And instead of just trying to stick my head in the sand, I went ahead and I signed up for a ChatGPT account. And I developed what I refer to as an iterative sequencing analysis experiment, where I started feeding ChatGPT the exact writing assignments that I used in my courses,
Yeah.
and then started comparing its outputs across all those assignments. And the very first time I did it, I gave it an assignment when it just what the assignment was, and it spit out this perfectly fluent and peripherally topical response that caused my heart to sink. And I was just like, I need to go back to the art world. This job is over. But I didn't stop. After I started doing what what became dozens and dozens, now over hundreds of these comparative, I started seeing certain tendencies.
Hmm.
And to try to be short about this, and I'll get to what I'm doing now in it,
Yeah.
the tendencies made sense to me when I read an article by Mahowald and Anna Ivanova. This was an early article from a cognitive linguistic standpoint. Mahowald is at University of Texas Austin, and I believe Anna Ivanova at the time was at Michigan State. They ran a really complex test, and what they determined is that these generative AI programs, you need to distinguish their capabilities between two different forms of linguistic competence.
Hmm.
Formal linguistic competence, which is the ability to master and understand the standard rules of genre, syntax, organization. And they
Yeah.
said that their study showed that as far as formal linguistic competence, these things excel.
Mm.
No matter how wrong these programs are, they sound so smart and so
Yes.
fluent.
Yeah.
But there's another competence, linguistic competence, functional linguistic competence. And
Mm.
functional linguistic competence is not getting the sentences right and accessing information correctly. It's about the ability to functionally apply it to the real world in order to solve problems that don't have standard answers already.
Yeah.
And they said I remember one specific example. They asked ChatGPT to propose how they would get a sofa to the second floor of a house. And so the first answer was, well, you take it up the stairs. And they said,
Yeah.
okay, but you can't take it up the stairs. And it said, okay, well, what you'll do, you'll take a crane and then you'll do this. Anyway, after a few iterations of them narrowing the field, ChatGPT said to them, cut the sofa into the shape of a window and then push the sofa through the window and then it's upstairs. Now, see, from a formal linguistic standpoint, all of that makes sense.
Yeah.
But from a functional real world application, that's not, a human would understand that that's not going to work. But
Yeah.
ChatGPT being just a linguistic mean calculator, and it's not just ChatGPT, all of them,
Yeah.
uh, it's they're just predicting statistical means based on the most basic, tokenized syntactical elements of language, and they don't understand a single word that they actually say. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean that they're not wrong because they're right most of the time. But when they're wrong, they're so very wrong, it can ruin
Yeah.
careers and cause the world to burn, as I told my students.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so that made sense of it. What that
Yeah.
leads to is I started saying to myself, okay, well, I didn't understand that until now. I thought these things are being sold as a panacea, as a cure, and they're still being sold as that. And I said, okay, I got to start teaching my students what these things really are, and let them develop the literacy, what we now call AI literacy, so that they can take the ownership of how they're willing to use it to to authentically engage with things,
Hmm.
understanding. And I always tell them, I said, at the end of the day, you're accountable for what you turn in, whether you touched Gen AI or not, and you're held
Yeah.
accountable for it. And I tell them about bias. I tell them about hallucinations, which I think that word isn't quite accurate anymore because it's more sort of like counterfactual
Yeah.
fluidity. But anyway, and So I started devising these little, uh, in the first week of any class I teach is I do a whole segment on AI literacy because we've seen the statistics. The students have been dabbling with it, but they don't have a clue how to actually use it.
Not a clue.
Hence
Yeah.
those terrible papers where they forget to even remove the
Yep.
things
Yep.
or where they state things that just don't exist. But and I could maybe show you some examples in a second of what I do. After the week of that, a lot of my students have started contacting me, coming to the office, are saying, I'm glad someone's finally telling me what this is. I've known there was something off about it,
Mm.
but it also just seems to make so much sense. And so they've begun developing sort of, well, it what you guys talk about in your book, mastery goals.
Mm-hmm.
Students will take a shortcut. You guys talk about this in your introductory chapter. Students will take a shortcut so long as they don't think that that shortcut is going to rob them of something valuable.
Yeah.
And so the way that our society, because it's a mass delusion that this thing actually thinks for itself. They'll see it as, well, if this could be a shortcut for me to get the grade and to get the degree, and I don't
Yeah.
lose anything valuable,
Yeah.
why wouldn't I take it? But if
Yeah.
you start showing them that, yeah, if you rely on this uncritically and you don't modify it and interact with it to create a neural replica of your own cognitive uh, you know uh, architecture, it's going to destroy you somehow.
Yeah.
And they get that, they understand that. So that was my preface. So the thing I mentioned at the GSV summit was one thing I do. We have a course called Write 10, which is pers- uh, a rhetoric and persuasive writing course based very much on personal writing
Yeah.
before they get to research-based writing. And in it, they have to sometimes write a sort of remembered event essay, or they have to profile a persuasive
Mm-hmm.
thing for their life. And for the remembered event essay, uh, I give them an in-class activity, and I want to stress one thing: anytime, at least now, for now, anytime that I incorporate a Gen AI component to course, it's an opt-in only. I will never force a student to do so because there are very many legitimate ethical concerns about
Yep.
AI use that a lot of students have.
Yeah. A lot of
So
students and faculty. Yeah.
yeah, so I always like ask the room, who would actually want to use Gen AI on this aspect that could be part of a scaffolding? That's a word we use to talk about pre-writing and
Yeah.
brainstorming. And then I put them into groups so that students who don't want to touch Gen AI are part of it and they get to contribute in it and they get that metacognition you guys talk about.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so if you remember the event essay, they have to take one paragraph that describes now at the GSV. I probably focused in on a specific student who was writing about their childhood home, but they
Yes.
could write about anything. And they have to take one
Okay.
paragraph that sets a necessary critical scene or a setting behind the event that they're remembering and why it's significant to them. So for the student in a childhood home, they were in a group with some other students who didn't do it, and then they wrote it. They wrote the paragraph, and then I said, okay, feed it into the Gen AI you're already using, whether it's ChatGPT or Google Gemini. And if you're not using it, but you want to try, go to Canva. That's a free one. And I said, feed it the paragraph and have it generate an image. And then, so in this case, the image was generated live in front of the class. And then I had the group who had been with that student and talked about the paragraph analyze the image and ask themselves, is that what you were going for? Is
Mm.
that what you
Mm-hmm.
were trying to get? Because, and here's the metacognition, because words really do matter down to a deep,
Yeah.
deep, nano linguistic level. Uh, simple, a simple change of adjective can completely reboot the tone
Yeah.
of an entire piece. And it's hard to really sort of help students see that. But when these images came up, and we went through several of
Yeah.
these images came up. Uh, one student who was already writing at an A level, they were just one of those ones you get in a classroom, you're like, oh, thank God that today's this is going to be an easy quarter. Uh, their image came up brilliantly detailed, beautiful, everything, and everyone was really happy with it. But even that student was like, yeah, but I could do better, and they went back to it. But there was another one where it was a childhood home one where the image came up and it was really not, because they had a sort of a very sort of like sea level.
Vague.
I'm a
Yeah.
who, what, where, when, and nothing else.
Yeah.
And they didn't get into the music of
Yeah.
language. they didn't get into the rhythm of sentence structure, which is a very that's what I was like when I was 18.
Yeah.
I remember struggling in my first writing course. Anyway, and here's the thing: is like that student saw that and they were like, "Oh, hell no, that's not no." And then there was that moment where like, okay, what do we got to do
Um,
better? And
yeah.
again, I didn't put them out on an island. They had their squad, their in class
Yeah.
squad, their peer network, and they and again, this is the collaboration and this is the sharing the cognitive load of solving a complex problem in a
Mhm.
multimodal format. And here's the thing, I mean, it engages, some students are auditory learners, some are visual learners, and it allows for that multimodal collaboration.
Yeah.
And then they're trying to, this is gamification, because then they're trying to beat
Yeah.
the Gen AI
Yeah.
with a better paragraph.
Yeah.
And then that leads to authentic learning and intrinsic motivation that you guys talk about. So that was the
Yeah.
example I used at GSV.
Yeah, I mean, I love it because I was thinking when I heard that example, I was thinking, how often do we get to see our words come to life?
Hmm.
Right? And it's such a, we may all not be some of us may like to read, and some of us may like to learn watching YouTube videos like my husband
Hmm.
does. Um, but I think all of us would love to see our words come to life.
Hmm.
And we just don't get that opportunity. Novelists get that opportunity perhaps if their novel gets made into a movie or a TV
Hmm.
show. But so I just think that's very powerful and a great way to show, like you said, how words matter. And if you think about well, that's what ChatGPT thought you were saying. You could also extrapolate that to misunderstandings in communication, people to people, right? It's like you thought you
Hmm.
were being clear,
Hmm.
but you could use that for like an oral communication class too,
Yeah.
in a way, right? So I think
Yeah.
that's really, really cool. So you had mentioned that you teach students AI literacy because you know they're using it anyways, and you want them to use it critically, which is great. What about, though, the professors of writing, or I guess of any discipline, but let's stick to writing, who don't think students should be using it, whether they're using it critically or not, right? Because from the place of they're using it anyway, so I want them to use it critically, is still a very different relationship to writing than pre-LLMs.
Yeah.
So what do you say to those folks?
Well, first and foremost, I will be an absolute champion for every educator's right to determine uh, their classroom's guidelines,
Yeah,
because it's like a lot of things. We all have intellectual, noetic personalities and experiences we bring to the classroom. Some things work better for us than others, and that's true for students.
yeah,
You don't want to give students just like one template to solve a problem. You want to give them an arsenal
right.
to solve a problem and select what works best for them. And this it's the same thing for teachers. I have colleagues, some of them dear friends of mine who borderline think I'm the devil, and we still maintain our friendship. Uh,
Yeah,
but we're very collegial. But no, but they have legitimate points of view because there's you have to separate something. I have to separate something when I talk about this. AI is two things. It's a mere technology, but it's also become a cultural pathology, if not a delusion.
yeah.
People think that it actually thinks. People think it actually replicates what the human mind does. Uh,
Mm,
and it's again, I use this word, a statistical mean calculator. It determines norms,
yeah.
means, and means are nothing more than
Patterns.
average, and they're C's.
Yeah.
So, and what works for me is not necessarily going to work for somebody else. And also, if you go too heavily into AI, you lose some of the other things. Something that I get concerned about because I don't use AI a lot. Mainly, it's the first week, and then on an individual basis, I allow students to come to me with how they think they might want to try to use it
Okay.
to work together, and we create a reflection plan where they get to use
Okay.
it, and then they have to write a report to me about how the experience went.
Great.
But how much there's such limited time, and we're on 10-week quarters here at UCO,
Yeah.
even in a 15-week semester, we only get them for a few hours a week. It's so much limited time. How much real estate am I taking off the table for other
Mm,
time worn techniques that we know work? And
mm.
so there is a balance that needs to be struck. I am neither an AI utopian nor a dystopian. Um, and I'm always trying to rethink the way I balance it. So going back to your original question, I actually am all for the recalcitrant members because I think we need a diversity of approaches.
Yeah.
We don't want all professors following the same template with the same one pedagogical model because students need to be exposed to a
Yeah.
diverse array of problem solving techniques. So I'm all for it, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I mean, I think every college and university needs to ensure that students get that AI literacy, which I really just think is critical thinking.
Hmm.
Um, but not every instructor needs to be doing it. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, ideally in a program we would plan that as a program or department, right? Rather than just fully, kind of wild, wild west of not
yeah.
knowing who's doing what. But yeah, so okay, so writing, you've kind of figured out. I love that you then have students kind of a transparent environment where I teach you about how to be critical about the output, about its limitations. Then if you think you still want to use it, you need to come talk to me about how you want to use it. And then if you use it, do basically a metacognition, right? Reflection
Hmm.
at the end. What did I use? Was it helpful? Did it help me?
Yeah.
Did it hinder or help me? So that's all great. Have you changed anything about, you said something about tried and true, strategies we've been using forever. Have you changed anything about your what you teach in writing beyond incorporating in some AI? So, for example, the big conversation in writing circles is about process over product, right? Like we
Hmm.
got to end our reliance on the 5 paragraph essay
Yeah.
as an artifact of students learning how to write or how to critically think. So, have you made any other kinds of changes like that because of AI?
Well, I've been a huge devotee of the process over product model. That there's a new thing, feedback literacy, that's been talked about over the
Mm,
last like 7 or 8 years. The idea that we encourage feedback so much, where students, that we put them into peer groups, we give them
yes.
feedback, but feedback literacy more or less talks about that just getting feedback doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to understand it. You have to have a literacy about what the role of feedback is
Yeah.
in sort of like fostering your learning engagements, your journey to to your mastery goals.
Yeah.
And so I've been spending a lot more time talking to and trying to incorporate things that are less about the formal linguistic side of it. Is like you mentioned the 5 paragraph essay, but also like if I'm teaching, sometimes I have students, as a specific applied example of a profile essay, they have to write a cover letter for an application to study abroad, which follows all the things about a profile essay, but it's something linked to that. But even
Yeah.
then, am I giving them a template? And so I
Yeah.
started incorporating these things, these feedback literacy moments, asking them before you show your draft to anybody, make a list of the things you don't know yet about uh,
Mm,
the application process, or the things you don't know that you need to tell them about yourself. Make that list before you give it to them. Then give it to them, and then when you get their feedback, find if these fall into these categories, because it helps give them focus and it allows them
yeah.
to move beyond a lot of the standard things where students want to know that, oh, business letter template, single space, no indent. Yeah, okay, cool, that's awesome, kid, but that's literally step one in a marathon, and I don't want to fixate too much on those little formal details for that
Yeah.
reason.
Great. Yeah, like it's a simple example, right? Is we used to grade, and hopefully most people aren't anymore, grade the formatting of references.
Hmm.
And we don't do that anymore, hopefully, because machines have been generating fixing
Hmm.
the formatting for us for a long time. Although I'm I've never gotten the hang of EndNote or any of those things. I still just do everything by hand, which is
Yeah.
silly, and but I just my 1990s brain of when I was
Hmm.
trained to do referencing just can't get past that. So you talk a lot about metacognition. You talk about trying to enhance students' motivation to learn by making things meaningful and applying to real life. So all those things are what we talk about in the book as ways to hopefully reduce, make cheating the exception and integrity the norm. Are you still getting um, integrity violations in your class? Are you getting people who are plagiarizing? Are you getting people who are telling you they're not using AI or telling you they're using it one way, but you're looking at their paper and going, no, you used it way more than that. Are you still having those issues, or have you figured out how to do you have the magic bullet solution? They're all gone.
Absolutely not. And
Darn it.
along those lines, uh, there's you guys referenced the book. I forget the way you put it, but there's a certain attitudinal disposition of some, and it's not just students, but people that,
People.
yeah, they can't be reached. I forget how you guys put it, but
The enrolled persons ones, yeah. The
yes,
narcissists as
yes.
well.
So, but I will say this. First of all, I also want to progress something else. I want to be very clear. Um, I've been studying this for years now. I've read thousands of AI
Yeah.
outputs, and I would never tell anybody that I can magically be
Detect.
sure something is AI or not. Because, if a student actually thinks about the learning objectives, they process materials, and they use very sophisticated prompts.
Yeah.
If they actually master the goals of the course, the learning objectives,
Mm-hmm.
and then they use really sophisticated inputs to generate a whole essay, I'm not gonna be able to tell that that's not them or not. It's that old British phrase, rubbish in, rubbish out. We say garbage in, garbage out in the States here. Sorry, I spent
Yeah.
a year studying in England, so
Yeah.
I sometimes confuse them. But yeah. So no, of course not. I will say this though. I do have anecdotal evidence from last year. I was actually making a presentation at our faculty retreat this last year about the ways I was using AI as a TA, actually,
Oh, okay.
where I actually have AI do an initial assessment of my students at a formal linguistic competence level, and then I use their report. Then I read it myself.
Oh, interesting.
And anyway,
For the
but
functional piece of it.
yeah, because it's going to get that. Well, it's not.
Yeah.
It's going to be random. So meaning sometimes it gets it right, but it
Sure.
often gets it wrong.
Yeah.
But anyway, several of the faculty members said that they thought it was fascinating what I was doing, but that right now they're just dealing with the fact that they don't get a single essay with grammar errors anymore, so they know it's AI.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
and I had an interesting experience. I looked at them. I said, what's really weird in my class right now that I'm teaching right now, I have just as many grammar errors as before AI, and I'd like to believe that that goes very much to what you guys talk about authentic learning, but what I like to talk about is about inculcating agency and ownership
yeah.
within students of their own outputs, because I make it really clear to students how it's all surface level pablum that
Mm-hmm.
sounds cogent on the surface, but if you go beneath it, it's very shallow thinking. It's a
Yes.
statistical mean calculator that's average, and I actually have it in my syllabus link, my syllabus statement about AI. The very last thing I say is, "You are smarter than a computer," and that's after I tell them that conditionally they can use it. They just have to talk to me about it. Now that said, but I don't want to toot my own horn too much that I'm having less instances of students running through AI to clean up all the grammar errors because they want to learn on their own. I'm sure some student has gotten by something.
Yeah.
It's a very good technology,
Yeah.
uh, but it's very also reflective of the sophistication of the cognitive
The user.
sophistication and mastery of the mind that is inputting on it. And this
Yeah.
is where it gets into a gray area because I gave a presentation, a different presentation a couple months ago. And I had one faculty member a little skeptical of my approach. That's fine. Where they say, well, what if they ask it all the right questions and they give refining comments and you give it an A, but they never actually wrote one of the words themselves. Would that be cheating? And I just looked and I said, at the moment, I'm not sure. Because if
Yeah.
they were able to really deeply understand and engage with all my lectures, all my course materials, the readings, and understand, is that not part of what we want for them? That they can apply this functionally to
Yeah.
themselves to read different, the way that we use calculators in some ways, or the protractor from my childhood, or the abacus before it.
Yeah. Well, but that gets to the process over product piece, right? Because yeah, if all you're getting from a student is a final product, you actually have no idea.
Hmm.
So have you incorporated like oral conversations with students?
Oh
I know
yeah,
you said you do peer review in the class. Do you do in-class writing? Like, what are some of the
yeah,
things you do to, I guess, validate that that final product actually is
yes,
reflects their
yeah.
mastery?
No, there's all of those elements.
Okay.
There's always an in-class form of pre-writing
Yep.
that I collect, and I create a copy of before, and then I mark it and hand it back,
Yep.
and uh, and I use that. I always tell them I have a threat in my syllabus that if I ever become skeptical and concerned about your ethical use of any type of aid, and that's not just AI,
Yeah.
but translation software,
Yeah.
Wikipedia, I said I reserve the right to invoke a viva voce session that will be a significant part of the final grade of that assignment.
Yeah.
And you can see a lot of them sort of perk up
Yeah.
for a second because it is about ethics. To go back to, I mean, not just your book, but what you're championing for is
Yeah.
that any tool, a hammer without ethics, can be devastating.
Yes.
But a hammer in the hands of a very ethical person, think of Habitat for Humanity with Jimmy Carter and all of that.
Yeah.
It a tool, a technology is only uh, is neutral. It's a rock in the desert. It doesn't do anything until somebody moves it.
Yeah.
If we can inculcate an ethical approach to these radically transformative, and it's
Yeah.
I'm not a Pollyanna about AI. I'm
Yeah.
still quite terrified, not of the technology itself, but how it's being sold,
Yes.
which is a
Well,
topic I'll be dealing
or
with at
even
a
given
conference.
given away to us to do that intentional entanglement piece. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and but not being completely forthright about the
Yeah.
reality of its nature and its teleology. That's something we don't
Yeah.
talk about. I know no one wants to talk about philosophy, but it does have a teleology. It was designed with a purpose in mind,
It
and
was designed by human beings.
yes, with a
Yep.
specific purpose in
Yep.
mind. And
Yep.
no one wants to talk about that because that takes away the magical
The
aura.
mystery of it all.
And then you can't
Yeah.
chase investment dollars if you break it down to what it really is, which it's
Yeah.
very good at. It can really revolutionize a lot of things conditionally on how it's used and applied by who.
Yeah. I so appreciate you saying that because, we were talking earlier about how we want to give, students and faculty full rights to refuse using it for all sorts of usually ethical reasons, whether
Mhm.
that's the environmental reason or the copyright intellectual property reason or whatever angle, that reason takes. Um, and it's and the ethics of um, not only giving people a chance to act on their ethical beliefs about that refusal, but also that this whole thing is about ethics, and I've
Mhm.
had seen too many conversations on social media and LinkedIn in particular where people are like, it's not, well, of course it sounds like it's ChatGPT wrote it. It's not about cheating. It's about revolutionizing learning and all this stuff,
Mhm.
right? And it is always about cheating because if I tell you that I did it myself and I'm not telling you and I didn't do it myself, that's a lie.
Yeah.
So we do actually still need humans to, and perhaps this will set us apart from the machines. We still need humans who will hopefully live up to values that most of us would want in a family member or a friend or a colleague: honesty, trust,
Yeah.
responsibility, respect, right?
And something isn't talked about a lot in the popular cultural discussion of AI, but within AI engineers, they talk about the primacy of alignment with human oversight.
Yes.
They're very aware. It's not
Yes.
the AI engineers that are the problem. It's their job. The people that are selling it, chasing investment dollars, and I understand you got to get that bottom line. You need
Yeah.
but it absolutely is an amplification. It's a force amplification of the human's conceptual ability to
Yeah.
radically rethink one's relationship to reality, not replace reality, but rethink
Yeah.
one's relationship. And you can do that in a lot of positive ways that enrich everybody.
Yeah.
You can also do that to really cause a lot of damage. And we have
Yeah.
historical record of that over time.
No, and I think if we're not going to do that in the universities, who's going to do that, right?
Yeah.
So, I'd love to end on that note about emphasizing the importance of um, the AI literacy piece is kind of a vague phrase and people can interpret it differently, but it's really about thinking critically about these machines, which to me allows us to also say thinking ethically. So, thinking critically along an ethical dimension and other dimensions about these machines. Are they good for learning? When are they good for learning? When are they not? Are they good for replacing some functions we do as teachers? When are they not?
Hmm.
And that does require some slow thinking rather than quick, fast reactionary adoption. And you did put in that thinking. You put, like you said, thousands, thousands of assignments and thousands of hours of work into figuring that out, which also should be compensated. And faculty need to be given time, training, and support to do that. This is seemingly becoming my tagline of my life.
Mhm.
So with that, I want to say thank you, Shane, for putting in that time, for training yourself, and for sharing that with your students, and now with sharing it with our audience. I really appreciate you.
Right. Well, thank you for having me. And in addition to you for this podcast and your co-author David, you're writing about another facet or aspect of this new cultural pathology that isn't getting enough attention and is a critical foundational part of everything else we're talking about it. So thank you for just trying to bring more awareness to it and getting more people willing to talk about it. Thank you for
All right. Well, on that end of mutual gratification,
that.
we'll say goodbye, and we'll make sure to share some notes in the show notes, particularly to that citation of the linguistic competencies. I want to share that with folks. Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Ching.
Take care. Bye bye.